Every crime tells a story, but some stories don't make sense, not even after all the evidence is on the table. Tonight, we reopen one of the most chilling cases in modern history, the strange disappearance and death of Elisa Lam, a case that still divides experts, haunts detectives, and fascinates the world. This is more than just a mystery. It's a real-life puzzle of fear, mental health, and unanswered questions buried inside a hotel with a dark past. If you're new here, welcome to our handle at Dark Truth 25, where we uncover the hidden truths behind the world's most disturbing true crime stories. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications, because every day we bring you deep investigations and chilling real-life true crime that you won't find anywhere else. And if you followed this story before, share your thoughts in the comments below, because sometimes your theory might be the missing piece. Now, imagine this. A 21-year-old college student checks into a downtown hotel in Los Angeles. She's traveling alone. She calls her family every day. And then, without a trace, she's gone. No witnesses, no struggle, no sound, only a short, eerie video of her last known moments inside an elevator. What you're about to hear is not fiction. It happened. This is the story of Elisa Lam and the Cecil Hotel, where truth and terror meet. There's a place in Los Angeles where the line between the living and the lost seems to blur. A building that stands tall among skyscrapers, its windows holding stories too dark to tell in daylight. They call it the Cecil Hotel, and within its walls, over the course of nearly a century, something unexplainable has always lingered. A chill that seeps through the air, a silence that feels alive. The hotel was built in 1924, meant to be a glamorous stop for travelers visiting the booming city of Los Angeles. Back then, it was beautiful. Marble floors, stained glass, elegant staircases. But the world around it began to change. The Great Depression hit, and the neighborhood fell into decline. The once shining hotel slowly transformed into a dark refuge, a place where the desperate came to disappear. Skid Row, the infamous district that surrounds it, became a symbol of struggle, filled with poverty, addiction, and mental illness. The Cecil became part of that world, its beauty fading into something tragic and haunted. Over the years, the hotel gained a reputation. Guests would vanish. Others would die under mysterious circumstances. Some jumped from its windows. Others were never identified. It became home to drifters, criminals, and people society forgot. And among its tenants were names that would later terrify America. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, who committed his murders while living there in 1985, and Jack Unterweger, an Austrian journalist who turned out to be a serial killer, checking into the Cecil to write about crime, while secretly committing it. By the 2000s, the hotel had changed its name, trying to escape its dark legacy. But no matter what it was called, its past followed like a shadow that refused to fade. And then, in January 2013, a young woman named Elisa Lam arrived from Vancouver, Canada. She was 21 years old, curious, adventurous, and hopeful. She wanted to see California, to experience life beyond her comfort zone. But she chose the wrong place to stay. Elisa checked into the Cecil Hotel, unaware that she was walking into a building drenched in mystery, a place where stories didn't always have endings. What happened next would captivate the entire world. A missing person case that spiraled into one of the most chilling and confusing mysteries in modern history. A case that would question not only what happened, but whether the hotel itself might hold secrets no one can truly explain. This is the story of Elisa Lam and the haunting of the Cecil Hotel. Before the news headlines, before the theories, the YouTube breakdowns, and the viral elevator footage, there was just Elisa Lam, a daughter, a sister, a student, and a dreamer. Born on April 30th, 1991, in Vancouver, Canada, Elisa was the child of immigrant parents from Hong Kong. Her family ran a small restaurant, and she helped out often, balancing work and school like many first-generation kids do. By all accounts, Elisa was bright, kind, and curious. She loved reading, especially contemporary literature and personal blogs. She kept an online journal, writing about her struggles, her thoughts, and her hopes for the future. Elisa wasn't afraid to share her inner world online. On her Tumblr blog, she opened up about her battle with bipolar disorder and depression. Her words were honest and heartfelt. A young woman trying to understand herself in a world that often felt overwhelming. She often wrote about feeling lost, about wanting to travel, to escape routine, to find something bigger, something meaningful. Her posts showed a side of her that many connected with, vulnerable yet brave, fragile yet determined. In January 2013, Elisa decided to take a solo trip down the west coast of the United States. It would be her first big adventure on her own. She planned to visit several cities, San Diego, Los Angeles, Santa Cruz, documenting her journey through blog entries and photos. For Elisa, this wasn't just a trip, it was freedom. A chance to push through her fears, to see the world, to meet people, and to learn about herself. She traveled by train, updating her family regularly to assure them she was safe. Everything seemed normal, ordinary, hopeful. When she arrived in Los Angeles, she checked into the Cecil Hotel, a low-cost place downtown that fit her student budget. To Elisa, it was just a stop along her journey, nothing more. But to those who knew the hotel's past, the name alone carried weight. For decades, the Cecil had been linked to tragedy, suicide, and even serial killers. Still, Elisa couldn't have known. She was a visitor in a city that looked bright from the outside, but whose corners held shadows. Elisa was assigned to a shared room on one of the hotel's upper floors. At first, she had roommates, other travelers. But reports say that, after a few days, her behavior became odd, enough that the hotel moved her into a private room. No one could have imagined that this decision, moving her into isolation, would mark the beginning of the most confusing chapter of her life. Over the next few days, Elisa explored Los Angeles. She visited bookstores, coffee shops, and museums. She even posted to social media, sharing her excitement and reflections. But on January 31st, 2013, her messages suddenly stopped. Her family in Vancouver, who spoke to her daily, received nothing. No texts, no calls, no replies. Elisa Lam had vanished. Hotel staff couldn't find her. Her belongings were still in the room, untouched. Her phone, laptop, wallet, and clothes. The Los Angeles Police Department was called in. Flyers went up. The search for Elisa began. A search that would soon uncover something far more disturbing than anyone could imagine. And then the video surfaced. A 2-minute clip that would send chills around the world. A recording from a hotel elevator, showing Elisa's final known moments alive. What was captured inside that elevator would make millions of people question everything they thought they knew about the line between safety and fear, sanity and confusion, and life and death. The elevator video, the last known moments. When investigators reviewed the Cecil Hotel security footage from the night of January 31st, 2013, they found something strange, something no one could explain. At first, it was just an ordinary recording. A young woman, alone in the elevator, late at night. But what they saw next would haunt viewers for years to come. The timestamp read 12 a.m. Elisa Lam enters the elevator wearing a red hoodie, black shorts, and sandals. She steps in casually, her movements calm, deliberate. She presses several buttons in a single row, as if unsure of where she's going. Then she waits. The elevator doors stay open. They don't close. Elisa looks around, confused. She peeks out into the hallway, looks both ways, and suddenly hides in the corner. Something feels off. She steps out again, looking into the hallway, moving her hands nervously. Her gestures grow larger. Her fingers spread, twisting through the air as if she's trying to explain something or talk to someone we can't see. Then she moves back inside, presses more buttons, the entire panel this time, and steps out again. The elevator still doesn't move. The doors remain open. And then she starts making strange, almost rhythmic gestures, moving her arms in wide arcs, bending her elbows sharply, her hands floating like she's reaching for something invisible. The entire video lasts only a few minutes, but it feels endless. There's no audio, no context, no explanation, just silence and movement. At one point, Elisa steps out of view entirely. Then the doors close, reopen, and close again. The elevator begins to move, but Elisa is gone. When the LAPD released the footage to the public, it went viral instantly. Millions of people around the world watched it, over and over, trying to decode what they were seeing. Was Elisa hiding from someone? Was she afraid? Was she hallucinating? Or was something else in that hallway with her? Something the camera couldn't capture? Some viewers noticed small details that made the mystery even darker. The elevator's door delay seemed unnatural, as if it was being held open on purpose. The timestamp appeared corrupted or edited. Others pointed to Elisa's hand movements, comparing them to strange symbolic gestures, theories of possession, or communication with an unseen force. Online communities exploded with speculation. Forums, blogs, and YouTube videos dissected every frame. Some said she was playing a Korean elevator game, a supposed ritual that opens a door to another dimension. Others believed someone or something was following her. But detectives focused on the real-world details. Elisa was last seen alone, acting strangely. She had a history of bipolar disorder and was known to take prescription medication. The possibility of a mental health crisis couldn't be ignored. Still, something about the footage didn't add up. If Elisa was having a breakdown, how did she end up in a locked water tank several floors above, on a rooftop with restricted access? The elevator footage offered questions, but no answers. For weeks, her family, police, and volunteers searched every corner of the hotel, from the lobby to the basement. But there was no trace of Elisa Lam. Until one day, a guest complained about something strange in the water. The rooftop discovery. 2 weeks after Elisa Lam vanished, the search for her had gone cold. Police dogs had combed every hallway, every stairwell, every storage room of the Cecil Hotel. Flyers were everywhere, her face printed beneath the words "missing person." But there were no leads, no sightings, no clues. Then, on February 19th, 2013, a hotel maintenance worker climbed up to the rooftop to investigate a guest complaint. Guests had been reporting something strange about the water. The pressure was weak, the color was dark, and some even said it had a bitter taste. The worker, Santiago Lopez, went to check the hotel's 4 massive water tanks that sat atop the building, large industrial cylinders, each standing taller than a man. When he opened the hatch of one tank, he froze. Inside the dark water, he saw something floating, something human. It was the body of Elisa Lam. She was found naked, her clothes floating beside her, along with her watch and room key. The water tank had a heavy metal lid, difficult to open. The rooftop itself was locked, with alarm doors that only staff could access. Yet somehow Elisa had ended up inside, unseen, unheard, and unreachable for nearly 3 weeks. Police quickly arrived. Firefighters had to drain the tank before retrieving her body, a task that took hours. Guests were horrified. Some realized they had been drinking, bathing, and brushing their teeth with the same water that had concealed Elisa's remains. The discovery sent shockwaves through the city and the world. How did she get in there? Why didn't anyone hear her? Investigators faced more questions than answers. The only clear fact was that Elisa Lam was gone, and the circumstances made no sense. Detectives examined the rooftop. The doors leading up were locked, and the fire escape was the only alternative route, a dangerous climb for anyone, let alone someone untrained. There were no signs of struggle, no evidence of foul play. But there were also no fingerprints on the tank lid, nothing to prove she had opened it herself. How could Elisa, who stood barely over 5 feet tall, have lifted a heavy steel lid, climbed inside, and closed it again? Or was it never closed at all? Some reports claim the lid was found shut when she was discovered. Others say it was open. The details remain uncertain, and those inconsistencies only deepen the mystery. Her body was taken for autopsy. Toxicology tests were ordered. The world waited for answers, hoping science could explain what logic could not. But while the investigation moved forward, the internet exploded. Millions of viewers dissected every second of the elevator footage. Theories multiplied. Was Elisa murdered? Did someone push her into the tank? Or was this something more, something psychological, or even supernatural? For some, the Cecil Hotel's history made the case feel cursed. For others, Elisa's story was a tragic example of mental illness misunderstood. But one thing was clear. The truth was as murky as the water she was found in. The autopsy. Answers that raised more questions. Headphone sound. Slow-ticking clock. Soft hum of fluorescent lights. Faint echo of city noise outside. After weeks of speculation and fear, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office released the autopsy report on Elisa Lam. The world held its breath, waiting for closure. Instead, it only deepened the mystery. The official cause of death was listed as accidental drowning. No evidence of physical trauma. No signs of sexual assault. No drugs or alcohol in her system that could explain erratic behavior. On paper, it looked simple. Elisa drowned. But anyone who knew the details of the case knew that nothing about this was simple. Her toxicology report did show traces of her prescribed medications, drugs used to stabilize bipolar disorder. But experts noticed something odd. Some of those medications were present in lower amounts than expected, while others, that she was supposed to be taking daily, were missing completely. This meant Elisa may not have been taking her medication consistently during her trip. If true, it could explain disorientation, paranoia, and the unusual behavior seen in the elevator video. But still, could mental confusion alone lead someone to climb onto a rooftop, open a sealed tank, and drown? The autopsy raised another strange question. No water was found in her lungs during the initial examination notes. Later, the report was amended, suggesting she had, in fact, drowned. Why the change? Was it an error or a correction to match the narrative? No one knows. But for many, it felt like the official story was being written backward, to fit a conclusion rather than uncover a truth. Investigators said Elisa likely suffered a psychotic episode, wandered onto the roof through the fire escape, and accidentally drowned. But the evidence didn't line up neatly. There were no fingerprints on a hatch, no ladder found nearby that she could have used to climb in, no alarms triggered from rooftop access. And perhaps most confusing of all, the Cecil Hotel staff claimed the water tank lid was closed when she was found. If that's true, how could Elisa have closed it after she was inside? The police offered no explanation. The case was closed, but the internet wasn't ready to let go. Online, armchair detectives dissected every line of the autopsy report. Some noticed inconsistencies in timestamps and missing toxicology data. Others pointed out that Elisa's body showed unusual bloating, but little decomposition, inconsistent with being submerged for 3 full weeks. Was the timeline wrong? Could she have been moved to the tank later? Then came the theories. Some believe the LAPD rushed the investigation, eager to close the case and avoid negative press for a hotel already infamous for death and decay. Others thought there was a cover-up, perhaps involving the hotel management. And still, many believed Elisa's final days were a tragic battle with her own mind, a storm of fear, confusion, and hallucination that led her into danger no one could understand. Whatever the truth, Elisa's story struck something deep in people, because she wasn't a criminal or a celebrity or a victim of revenge. She was simply a young woman searching for meaning, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Her story reminded millions that real horror doesn't always come from monsters or killers. Sometimes, it comes from the fragility of the human mind and the darkness that can live quietly within us. The official files were closed, the press moved on, but the world never forgot. Because Elisa Lam didn't just vanish. She became a symbol of unanswered questions. Questions that would echo through the walls of the Cecil Hotel for years to come. Theories, the internet, and the obsession with Elisa Lam. When police closed the case of Elisa Lam in 2013, they declared it a tragic accident. But for millions of people around the world, that answer wasn't enough. The haunting elevator video, released online by the LAPD, had already become one of the most viral and disturbing clips in internet history. And as the footage spread, so did the theories. The internet became an open crime board. Reddit threads, YouTube analysis videos, Facebook groups. Everyone became an investigator. Frame by frame, users dissected Elisa's final moments. They slowed the footage down, zoomed in, compared timestamps, enhanced lighting, all searching for something the police might have missed. Many believed Elisa wasn't alone in that elevator. Some claimed they saw a shadow, a reflection, another person's foot or hand or shape moving near the door. Others noticed that the elevator doors stayed open far longer than they should have. Normally, they would have closed automatically in seconds. Was someone holding the door open button? Or was something wrong with the elevator itself? Then came the paranormal theories. The Cecil Hotel's dark history made it easy for people to believe something supernatural might be at play. Some said Elisa was being stalked by an unseen presence, a ghost tied to the building's violent past. Others claimed the elevator video captured a spiritual battle, Elisa reacting to forces we couldn't see. It didn't help that her body was later found in one of the most inaccessible places in the building, a place no one should have been able to reach without help. But not everyone believed in ghosts. Some internet sleuths turned their focus toward human involvement. A few accused hotel staff of negligence, or worse, a cover-up. Others pointed to a strange coincidence. Just days after Elisa's body was discovered, a deadly tuberculosis outbreak occurred among the homeless population near Skid Row. The name of the TB test used during that outbreak? Elisa. To conspiracy theorists, it was too strange to be random. They believed Elisa was part of a government experiment gone wrong. But of course, there was no real proof. Only eerie coincidences that fueled the fire. Others, more grounded in reality, believed Elisa had suffered a psychotic episode due to her bipolar disorder and medication imbalance. Her odd behavior in the elevator, they argued, might have been caused by hallucinations or delusions, and in a confused state, she might have wandered to the roof and fallen into the tank. It was tragic, but explainable. Yet even this theory left too many questions unanswered. The tank's closed lid, the locked doors, the lack of alarms. Then, another theory emerged, one that took a much darker turn. Online, a small but vocal group began linking Elisa's death to a musician named Morbid, who had stayed at the Cecil Hotel a year earlier. Because he had posted horror-themed music videos about death and darkness, and because of his brief visit to the hotel, the internet decided he must be involved. Within days, he was flooded with hate messages, accused of murder, and even received death threats. There was no evidence connecting him to Elisa. In fact, he wasn't even in Los Angeles when she died. But the internet had already made up its mind. This was the beginning of something new. The age of digital investigation and mob justice. A world where tragedy and entertainment blurred together. Elisa Lam's story had become more than a mystery. It became a mirror. It showed how quickly empathy could turn into obsession, and how the internet's hunger for answers could destroy innocent lives. People didn't just want to understand what happened to Elisa Lam. They wanted to feel like they were part of solving it. Her case became a community, thousands united by curiosity, fear, and a desperate need for closure. But as they searched deeper, they began to realize something haunting. Maybe the mystery wasn't just about how Elisa died. Maybe it was about why her story resonated with everyone who saw themselves in her. In an age of constant connection, Elisa Lam's final days reflected something we all fear: isolation, confusion, and being lost in plain sight. And as her story spread through screens around the world, one thing became clear. This was no longer just the story of a missing woman. It had become a digital legend. The cursed legacy of the Cecil Hotel. The Cecil Hotel was supposed to be a symbol of luxury, a grand monument in the heart of Los Angeles. But somewhere between the marble lobby and the flickering neon sign, something changed. Its beauty faded, and its history grew darker. For almost a century, the Cecil has been called many names. The Suicide Hotel, the Devil's Playground, a gateway for lost souls. To some, it's cursed. To others, it's just an unlucky building sitting in the wrong part of town. But for those who've walked its corridors, there's no denying the feeling. That unsettling sense of being watched, of being trapped inside something that remembers every scream, every secret, every death. The stories began long before Elisa Lam ever checked in. In 1927, just 3 years after opening, the Cecil recorded its first suicide, a man who shot himself in the head in his room. It wouldn't be the last. Over the decades, countless guests took their own lives within its walls, by gunshot, by poison, by leaping from upper floors. Many fell into the street below, their bodies discovered by morning commuters passing on their way to work. But suicide wasn't the only tragedy that lived there. In 1962, a woman named Pauline Otten jumped from the 9th floor after an argument with her husband and landed on a pedestrian walking below. Both died instantly. In 1944, a young mother named Dorothy Jean Purcell gave birth in her hotel room, not realizing she was pregnant. In shock, she threw the newborn from the window. By the 1970s, police reports showed dozens of deaths inside the hotel. Overdoses, murders, and mysterious disappearances. And then came Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. In 1985, the serial killer used the Cecil as his temporary home while terrorizing Los Angeles. After committing murders at night, he'd return to the hotel, throw his bloody clothes into the dumpster out back, and walk through the lobby half-naked, without anyone questioning him. A few years later, Jack Unterweger, an Austrian journalist-turned-killer, checked into the same hotel, supposedly researching Ramirez's crimes. But he, too, began murdering women around Los Angeles. 2 serial killers. Same building. Same hallways. Coincidence or something darker? For believers in the paranormal, the Cecil isn't just a building. It's a vessel. A structure that's absorbed the pain, despair, and violence of its past residents. A place where energy doesn't fade, it collects. Each death adding another layer to the haunting. Even skeptics admit that something about the Cecil feels off. Maybe it's the architecture, narrow hallways that twist like a maze. Maybe it's the way sound travels, or how the old pipes moan through the night. But for those who stayed there, the hotel seems to feed on human vulnerability, attracting people who are lost, lonely, or broken. And that's what makes Elisa Lam's story feel so unervingly connected to the building's legacy. A young woman, struggling with her mental health, drawn to a hotel that has witnessed decades of despair. A place where countless others had vanished before her, and where her own story would end in one of the most baffling ways imaginable. When the hotel's maintenance workers discovered her body in the water tank, guests had already been using that same water for days. Drinking it, showering in it, complaining about the taste. The very thought of it sent shivers around the world and reawakened the hotel's cursed reputation. The Cecil wasn't just a backdrop to tragedy anymore. It had become the symbol of it. The building itself, towering over Skid Row, seemed to represent everything dark and forgotten about modern society. The poor, the lost, the unseen. And at the center of it all, one name that wouldn't fade from memory. Elisa Lam. Aftermath and the legacy of a mystery. In February 2013, after the discovery of Elisa Lam's body, the Cecil Hotel was surrounded by flashing lights and yellow police tape. Reporters lined the sidewalks. Tourists stopped to take photos. And as the story spread around the world, the Cecil once again became a headline. A place where something unexplainable had happened, just like so many times before. For the police, the case was officially closed. Cause of death: accidental drowning. Manner: accidental. They cited Elisa's mental health struggles and medication imbalance as key factors. But to the public, the explanation didn't feel complete. How could a young woman climb into a water tank, several feet high, with a heavy metal lid, alone at night, on a locked rooftop? How did no alarms go off? And why did the footage from the elevator, her last known moments, feel so hauntingly unnatural? The world's fascination didn't fade when the investigation ended. In fact, it grew stronger. The internet had turned Elisa Lam's final days into a puzzle, one that people were determined to solve. For years after her death, new theories surfaced online every few months. Some believed she was a victim of foul play. Others thought she was chased or drugged. A few even connected her story to old urban legends, or to the dark energy of the hotel itself. In 2017, filmmaker and writer Ryan Murphy released American Horror Story Hotel, inspired in part by the Cecil's grim reputation. And in 2021, Netflix released Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, a 4-part documentary revisiting Elisa's case. The world watched again, and the debate reignited. Each time, viewers felt the same uneasy mix of sadness, fear, and fascination. It wasn't just about Elisa anymore. It was about why stories like hers grip us so tightly. Psychologists have often said that true crime draws us in because it gives us control over fear. We face the darkness, but from a safe distance. And mysteries like Elisa Lam's remind us of something far deeper. That even in a world full of cameras, clues, and technology, there are still things we cannot explain. The Cecil Hotel eventually shut down in 2017 for renovations. It reopened years later under a new name, the Stay on Main, rebranding meant to leave its haunted image behind. But history doesn't fade easily. Even with new paint, fresh furniture, and modern design, the shadow of the Cecil lingers. Locals say the air around the building still feels heavy, as if the walls remember everything. And what of Elisa Lam's legacy? Her Tumblr blog, Nouvelle Nouveau, remains online, a time capsule of her thoughts, her dreams, her fears. Through her writing, we see someone deeply human, a young woman struggling to find herself in a noisy, complicated world. She was funny, hopeful, and searching for meaning, like so many of us. Maybe that's why her story stayed alive long after the headlines faded. Because Elisa Lam wasn't just another name in a cold case file. She was every curious traveler, every restless dreamer, every soul trying to find peace in a chaotic world. And the Cecil Hotel, with all its shadows, was the stage where those fears and hopes collided. The strange case of Elisa Lam reminds us of something hauntingly simple. Sometimes, mysteries don't exist to be solved. They exist to remind us that life itself, with all its beauty, chaos, and fragility, is full of unanswered questions. Her story became a warning, a legend, and a mirror held up to the darker corners of our world. This has been the strange case of Elisa Lam, Mystery at the Cecil Hotel. If this story moved you, remember to like, subscribe, and share this documentary with others who love deep mysteries and true stories. We upload new investigative and mystery documentaries every week, exploring the world's most haunting unsolved cases. Join us again as we continue to uncover the hidden truths behind the stories the world can't stop talking about. Internet sleuths and online speculation. When the story of Elisa Lam hit the internet, it didn't just become a headline, it became an obsession. Within days of the hotel releasing the elevator footage, millions of people across the world were watching, pausing, rewinding, and analyzing every frame. It was February 2013, and social media was exploding with theories. Reddit threads, YouTube breakdowns, and entire websites dedicated themselves to unraveling what really happened to Elisa Lam. The video itself, grainy and time-stamped, became a digital ghost story. People slowed it down, studied her movements, her gestures, the way she pressed multiple buttons, and seemed to hide in the corner of the elevator. Some thought she was playing a game. Others believed she was terrified, talking to someone or something that we couldn't see. Every frame became evidence in the court of the internet. The YouTube comment section turned into an open investigation. Users argued about body language, timing, and even the shape of the elevator door. One group believed Elisa was being chased. They claimed you could see a shadow or footstep near the door just before it closes, a detail many rewound hundreds of times. Another theory suggested the video was edited, pointing out missing timestamps and strange jump cuts. Why, they asked, was the time code blurred? Why was the footage so unclear if it came from hotel security? To the internet sleuths, every second that didn't add up was proof of something being hidden. Then came the supernatural theories. Some noticed that Elisa's movements in the elevator resembled an old Korean ghost game called the elevator game, where players travel between dimensions by pressing elevator buttons in a specific sequence. Others linked the case to the dark history of the Cecil Hotel, claiming that the building itself carried an energy, a force that preyed on vulnerable souls. Ghost hunters and paranormal YouTubers started visiting the hotel, conducting EVP sessions and claiming to hear whispers, cries, and even Elisa's voice calling from the water tanks. On Reddit, a user named r/findelisa started posting threads daily. They collected timelines, witness statements, and police reports. It wasn't long before amateur investigators began to connect unrelated details, drawing red lines between events that might have been coincidence. For example, some noticed that Elisa had been blogging on Tumblr right up until her disappearance. Her posts were introspective, poetic, and, at times, dark, discussing loneliness, pressure, and mental health struggles. To some, her words sounded like cries for help. To others, they seemed like evidence of something supernatural following her. But not all the internet's theories were harmless. As the story spread, one particular online movement turned dangerous. Viewers began accusing a Mexican death metal musician, known as Morbid, of being responsible for Elisa's death, all because he had once stayed at the Cecil Hotel and uploaded a horror-themed music video. Without evidence, the internet mob decided he was guilty. He received thousands of death threats, his career destroyed overnight. Later, police confirmed he had been in Mexico at the time of Elisa's disappearance, but by then, the damage was done. The world saw how quickly curiosity can become cruelty. Still, the fascination grew. Elisa Lam's case became one of the first true crime mysteries to go viral in real time. People from every continent, the US, Canada, Nigeria, the UK, Japan, Brazil, all tuned in to speculate, investigate, and theorize together. Some genuinely wanted justice. Others were drawn to the eerie, cinematic quality of the story, a real-life mystery that felt like a horror film playing out online. Netflix's documentary The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel reignited interest years later. But even then, the same question lingered. Was Elisa Lam's death simply a tragic accident caused by mental health and circumstance? Or did the internet uncover something deeper, something the world refused to acknowledge? The internet sleuths may not have solved the mystery, but they kept it alive. And in a strange way, Elisa Lam became immortal. Her story endlessly replayed, reanalyzed, and reinterpreted by millions who never knew her, but couldn't stop thinking about her. In the end, the case became a mirror, reflecting our collective obsession with tragedy, mystery, and the unknown. Up next, the Cecil Hotel's legacy and closure, where we uncover what happened to the building that became a symbol of darkness itself. The Cecil Hotel's legacy and closure. Headphone, sound cue. Distant Los Angeles traffic, soft wind, faint echo of a closing door. Long after Elisa Lam's body was found and the headlines faded, one question remained. What happens to a place that becomes synonymous with darkness? The Cecil Hotel was no longer just a building. It had become a legend, a monument to misfortune, mystery, and death. For decades, the hotel stood in the heart of downtown Los Angeles, at the edge of Skid Row, surrounded by thousands struggling with homelessness, addiction, and despair. It was built in 1924 as a luxury destination, but by the time the 21st century arrived, it had become a refuge for the forgotten. More than a dozen deaths had occurred within its walls, suicides, overdoses, and violent crimes. Some guests checked in and never checked out. But it wasn't until the Elisa Lam case that the world truly took notice. After 2013, the name Cecil became infamous. Tourists began showing up not to stay, but to take pictures, selfies outside the entrance, TikToks in front of the neon sign, or ghost hunters filming their investigations. What was once an ordinary building had turned into a dark landmark. a place where tragedy had turned into attraction. In 2017, the hotel was officially closed for renovations. Its owners announced plans to transform it, to wash away the stains of its history. They renamed it the Stay on Main, a boutique-style rebranding meant to draw in travelers who had no idea of its dark past. But the truth was harder to bury than the name. Even after the new paint, even after the fresh signage, the old stories crept back into every corner. The Cecil was not just haunted by ghosts, it was haunted by memory. Each tragedy left an imprint, a mark of human suffering that no amount of renovation could erase. The elevator, the rooftop, the hallways, every space seemed to hold echoes of voices long gone. City officials tried to shut down rumors of hauntings, insisting it was all superstition. But even they admitted, no other building in Los Angeles had a police record like the Cecil's. The hotel's legacy became a living contradiction, a mixture of urban decay, mental health crisis, and the supernatural. Some said the building itself attracted tragedy, as if the walls fed on fear. Others argued it was just geography, poverty, desperation, and mental illness colliding in one sad, inevitable pattern. In 2021, the Cecil Hotel reopened, this time with a new purpose. It was converted into supportive housing, offering rooms for low-income and formerly homeless residents. A new chapter built on old bones. But even as social programs tried to bring light into those halls, the whispers never stopped. Guests and staff reported strange sounds, footsteps in empty corridors, faint voices near the old elevator, and lights flickering at odd hours. Whether you believe in hauntings or not, it's hard to deny that certain places carry weight. The kind of weight you can't measure, but you can feel. For many, the Cecil represents a crossroad between life and death, sanity and madness, reality and the unexplained. It is a reminder that tragedy leaves a trace, not just in memory, but in the spaces it touches. And as the years pass, the story of Elisa Lam refuses to fade. Her name remains tied to the hotel, inseparable from its identity. Some say her spirit finally found peace. Others say she's still there, part of the story that never truly ends. The Cecil Hotel may have changed its name, its walls, and its purpose, but its legend lives on, a permanent scar on the City of Angels. And for everyone who dares to walk through its doors, one question still lingers. Can a place be cursed? Or does it simply reflect the darkness within us all? Headphone. Music fades to black. Elevator door closes softly. Next, in our final chapter, Reflections and Closing Thoughts, we look at what this story truly means, about fear, empathy, and the human need to seek meaning in the unknown. Final thoughts and reflection. Every mystery ends the same way, with silence. The headlines fade. The investigators move on. But the questions stay. For years, people have asked, what really happened to Elisa Lam? The official answer calls an accident. But the truth is more complicated, because Elisa was more than a case file. She was a daughter, a friend, a young woman chasing the same dreams most of us have: freedom, discovery, connection. And somewhere in that pursuit, her life intersected with one of the darkest places in Los Angeles history. The Cecil Hotel became a mirror, reflecting everything society tries to ignore: mental illness, isolation, and the invisible struggles that live behind bright smiles. It's easy to call the building haunted. Harder to admit that sometimes the haunting begins within us. What keeps this story alive isn't only fear. It's empathy, the ache of wanting to understand how a person could vanish inside a world so crowded. Every detail, every theory, every frame of that elevator video shows us how desperate we are to make sense of tragedy. But maybe some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Maybe they're meant to teach us to listen closer, to others and to ourselves. If you've watched this far, take a moment to think of Elisa Lam not as a headline, but as a human being whose story reminds us that compassion matters. Reach out when someone goes quiet. Notice when someone drifts away. Sometimes that's all it takes to keep another story from ending like hers. And to the Cecil Hotel, The building that refused to fade, its story stands as a warning and a monument. That darkness never disappears. It only waits for new light. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the shadows. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe so others can discover it too. Your support helps us bring more in-depth investigations and haunting mysteries to light. Let us know your thoughts below. What do you believe really happened? We read every comment, and your theory might spark the next episode. Until next time, I'm Bishop Gigi, and this is Dark Truth 25, where truth and darkness meet. Stay safe, stay curious, and never stop searching for answers. The case of Elisa Lam reminds us that truth isn't always clear, and justice isn't always clean. Her death was ruled accidental, but deep down, many still wonder, was that really the full story? In a place with a history of darkness, coincidence feels like a weak excuse. What do you believe happened that night? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Every voice matters in the search for truth. If this story moved you, hit like, share, and subscribe to Dark Truth 25 for more real-life cases that challenge what we think we know. Because behind every unsolved mystery, there's a name, a face, and a truth still waiting to be uncovered.